The 101 Dalmatians, a Disney classic which brought us beloved characters such as Pongo and Mrs., Cruella de Vil, and Jasper and Horace. Based on the book by Dodie Smith, The 101 Dalmatians is the story of animal cruelty, a daring rescue, and the lengths at which parents will go to save their children. But did you know that Dodie Smith wrote a sequel to this beloved story over 10 years later, and it's, like, bizarrely supernatural? This is the story of the Starlight Barking. For this video, I reread 101 Dalmatians, rewatched the 1961 Disney adaptation, and obviously reread The Starlight Barking. The live-action movies are like an entire kettle of fish on their own, so I didn't bother to touch those. It wasn't really necessary for me to rewatch or reread The 101 Dalmatians itself, but it felt like good context on this universe, so I wanted to give myself a refresher. Some context for those of you who haven't read The 101 Dalmatians and have only watched the Disney adaptation. The film isn't really far removed from the book, but there is a couple of changes, so spoilers for 101 Dalmatians, I guess. In the film, Pongo and Perdita, or Mrs. Pongo, are the only grown-up dogs that the Dearlys own. In the book, however, Perdita and Mrs. are actually two separate characters. After Mrs. has her 15 puppies, famously, the Dearlys realise that she cannot possibly nurse them all on her own, and they look for another dog to help her out, and Mrs. Dearly finds Perdita, meaning lost, and brings her home. Perdita tells Pongo and Mrs. that she once had her own litter of puppies, but they were sold by her owner, and she was separated from their father, another Dalmatian called Prince. As it turns out, her litter was sold to Cruella de Vil, making them among the puppies that Pongo and Mrs. rescue and reuniting her with her children. And in the final turn, Prince is adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Dearly, and he becomes the 101st Dalmatian, completing the number. I understand wanting to simplify the plot by thinning down the characters, but it's a shame as Perdita is a really lovely secondary character. The novel is also more ethereal in tone. While the movie is kind of an exciting romp, there's something really esoteric about the book, which personally I really enjoy a lot. Although nothing explicitly magical happens, I cannot stress that enough. Christian undertones, yes, which we will come back to. So, that's a little bit about the book 101 Dalmatians. Is that strictly relevant to the plot of The Starlight Barking? No! But now that you have context on the world of the original novel, we can get into the story at hand. It's the middle of summer, many years after the events of the first book, and Pongo wakes up with the distinct feeling that he has overslept. It turns out to be 10:15, hours after the Dearlys would normally wake up. He wakes Mrs. and Perdita and Prince, and together they try to wake the humans, but they are totally unwakeable. The cats are also sleeping deeply, and Mrs. points out that they can't hear any birds. There's also no wind, no insect buzzing. It seems that every creature besides the dogs are sleeping peacefully. Pongo is concerned about who will take care of the puppies, as a lot of breeding has taken place in the years since the last book, and the Dearlys' new house in Suffolk is home to a lot more than 101 dogs. Prince and Perdita go off to check on the rest of the dogs, and Pongo and Mrs. go to find out if there are any humans awake in the entirety of the town, and the answer turns out to be no. There are other odd things also occurring, such as doors opening for the dogs so they can get where they need to go, and strangest of all, none of the dogs feel hungry or thirsty, and there isn't any panic. Beyond the general confusion and concern, everyone feels calm. As Pongo and Mrs. are speaking to their friend, the sheepdog general, they hear a bark from outside. Mrs. identifies this as Cadpig, their littlest daughter, the puppy who was stillborn but revived by Mr. Dearly. But surely she's not barking all the way from London. You see, about a year before the events of the Starlight Barking, Cadpig was adopted by the Prime Minister and now lives with him at 10 Downing Street. And she's not actually barking all the way from London, she is communicating with her thoughts. Dogs can do that now. She's discovered that dogs can also commit minor acts of telekinesis, the door opening that I mentioned earlier, through the power of belief. She's even managed to get word, or rather thought from abroad, confirming that the sleeping humans, as well as everything else, is a worldwide issue. Also, they can fly. Or rather, glide, which they refer to as swooshing. This enables Pongo, Mrs. and the rest of their grown-up children to get to London in a couple of hours, when it would normally have taken them a few days. Upon arriving in London, Pongo and Mrs. find it packed with dogs. Downing Street is so gridlocked that Cadpig has to send a police escort to get her parents through. Police dogs, of course. Inside number 10, Cadpig introduces her parents to her cabinet. Just as she is the Prime Minister of dogs, all the other dogs of all the other members of the cabinet have also taken up their respective roles. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Minister of Transport, and the Foreign Secretary are those who are named. In private, Cadpig confesses to her parents that she's actually very worried. She doesn't want to let anybody down. They hold a cabinet meeting and she asks Pongo to say a few words. He makes a speech which, due to the thought transmission thing, goes out to all dogs in London, as opposed to just the ones in that room. He tells the dogs to be patient, quoting former PM Herbert Harry Asquith, saying, "Wait and see. This is a hit with the dogs." Soon after this, the Dalmatians in London receive word from Suffolk that Tommy, the boy belonging to the sheepdog general, Pussy Willow the cat, and the Dearly's Persian cat, formerly belonging to Cruella de Vil, have all woken up. The dogs decide that this must be because at some point previously all of them have been declared honorary dogs. In fact, Tommy, the little boy, and the sheepdog used to be able to communicate with each other, making Tommy the only human who could really understand the dogs. Although he has lost a lot of this ability as he's gotten a bit older. Now, the honorary dog thing only stretches so far. Tommy and Willow and the Persian cat, who never gets a name, cannot do things with their minds or swoosh or send thoughts or anything. They're just awake. So, in order to get to London quickly, they put Tommy and the cats on a little tractor, which Tommy can sort of drive, and then a few dogs push it from behind while going really fast. So they arrive in London in a matter of hours. This little tractor going so fast. Anyway, they meet at Cruella de Vil's house. The Dalmatians and the Persian cat are suspicious that she has something to do with the events of the day, and although they know that this is probably outside the realms of her power, they still want to check on her for themselves. They confirm that, yes, she is asleep along with all the other humans, and they also discover that she and her husband have started making metal clothes. Essentially, she's not a furrier anymore, so she's no longer a threat to animals. So they decide not to kill her. There is a moment where they realise we could totally kill her right now, and they're like, should we do it? They're too morally good. With that out of the way, they return to Downing Street. Cadpig's main character trait from 101 Dalmatians is that she loves the TV. She loves the TV. And as the Prime Minister's dog, she gets to appear on TV, and she loves that too. There's a whole paragraph about how she makes people like the Prime Minister more because he has a cute dog. I can't really pass judgment because it's the Prime Minister is never named in the book. It's probably a fictional PM, but it's just really funny. This book is very pro-government. It's cute. It's cute when it's a government of dogs. Anyway, obviously since there's no humans, there's no one to broadcast anything, which everyone's quite sad about. Pongo suddenly feels like the TV could help them, and he switches it on with his mind, although obviously there's nothing on. But not for long. Suddenly the screen gets very bright, and the room gets very dark, and a star appears on the screen, and Mrs. says she dreamt about the star last night, and the TV replies, "Yes, that was me. I am that star." The voice tells them that they've all been doing very well so far, and that they need to follow its instructions. It says that every dog in England needs to be in an open space, such as a town square or the top of a hill, at midnight exactly. All the dogs in London must be in Trafalgar Square. It then says that they can ask it one question each, and then it doesn't answer any of them. After the voice has gone and the TV has switched back off again, the dogs set about spreading the word. Many dogs can obviously communicate by their thoughts, but there are a lot that can't, who need to be reached by old-fashioned barking. In the first book, there is a Great Dane that Pongo and Mrs. bark to, setting off the message of their stolen puppies. A scene that made me cry when I reread it. Now, they're trying to spread the word of what the dogs must do at midnight, and they make contact with the Great Dane again. Put a pin in that. I said contact. Night comes, and all the dogs in London have gathered in Trafalgar Square just as the voice told them to do. As they're waiting around for something to happen, the dogs begin to feel this immense happiness. They feel totally blissful. Some might even say rapturous. Eventually, Big Ben strikes midnight, and the star appears again, this time at the top of Nelson's column. The star introduces himself as Sirius, Lord of the Dog Star. At the beginning of the book, the Dog Star was mentioned in connection with the dog days of summer, the period of summer that's supposed to be the hottest, when the Dog Star is brightest in the sky. It's when the book is set. Sirius tells them that the overwhelming bliss they just felt was his doing, and wouldn't they like to feel like that all the time? And of course everyone says yes, because you would, wouldn't you? But when he tells them how it may be done, they start to feel unsure. Sirius no longer believes that humans deserve dogs. He tells them that humans are ruining the earth, and he has come to rescue them from the coming warfare. Especially the bomb, capital T, capital B. He wants to take them back with him to his star, and when the humans wake up, they won't remember that dogs as a species ever existed. He even floats the idea of letting the humans sleep forever, but no one's really on board with that, so he concedes, saying he understands because although he is a star, he is also a dog. For a brief moment, he lets them all see him as a dog, and every dog sees him as their own breed. The time comes to ask the dogs if they want to go, but everybody has a different answer. In the end, it comes down to Pongo, Mrs. and Cadpig. Everyone is happy to let them decide. Pongo isn't sure what he thinks, and he realises it's partly because Sirius is listening to his thoughts. He doesn't feel like his thoughts are truly private. Sirius, listening to his thoughts, immediately says, okay, I'll leave you be. He gives them an hour. He says to go into the National Gallery and come out at 2:00 with an answer. As the star begins to fade away, every dog feels a great sense of loss. This only concerns Pongo more. Does it mean he loves Sirius? Even more than he loves Mr. and Mrs. Dearly? He briefly thinks that although Sirius left to remove his influence, maybe that was his greatest manipulation of all. Inside the National Gallery, the vote comes down to Pongo, because of course it does. They seem to be leaning towards leaving with Sirius, but there's a great sense of unease at the thought of leaving their owners. Just at the moment that Pongo is wishing there was some authority he could speak this over with, another dog comes bounding into the gallery. It's the Great Dane! The one that Pongo and Mrs. have never met in person but only communicated with during the twilight barking. He has come all the way from Hampstead Heath to make sure the right decision is made. He asks Pongo what they're going to do, and Pongo says, well, actually, we're not quite sure. I knew it. I knew it. I said they'll be fooled, all those dogs in Trafalgar Square. Crowds are always fooled. They get so worked up that they can't think for themselves. I know about these things because I live with a professor who often talks about them. All you dogs are the victims of mass hysteria. The Great Dane doesn't like Sirius at all. He was fooled at first, but when the dog star presented himself as being every type of dog, instead of seeing him as understanding them all, the Great Dane saw it as dishonest and manipulative. In fact, this whole charade has been full of manipulation. This isn't quite enough for Pongo, but next into the gallery comes 3 dogs. They are all strays, and they represent all lost dogs, as they've been talking outside and they've come to give Pongo their unanimous decision. Pongo assumes that they will want to leave the Earth, as they've been mistreated the most, but he's wrong. They don't want to leave. They want the chance to find their own homes on Earth, and although leaving eliminates the hardships that they suffer, it also eliminates that chance. Already, Big Ben is striking too. The dogs in the National Gallery emerge to speak to Sirius, but of course he already knows their decision. So the answer is no. And it comes not only from you, all you dogs here in London. I can hear it from all over the world. And I know now that there could not be any other answer. Of all creatures, dogs have lived closest to mankind, and they will never desert mankind. And though I do not think such devotion is deserved, I can admire it. And it is something in men's favour that they can inspire it, and in their way return it. May you never regret your choice, O dogs of the world. I did cry. Sirius then tells all the dogs that they must all be home before sunrise, because this is when the humans will wake and their powers will leave them. As the star grew smaller and smaller, every dog in and around Trafalgar Square barked, "Goodbye, Sirius, goodbye. Goodbye." The voice that came from the dwindling star was now little more than a murmur. And then, every dog heard a strange sound which was like a soft summer breeze stirring the leaves of many trees. "What was that, Pongo?" asked Mrs. Pongo said, "Perhaps it was the sigh of a lonely star." What the hell? The dogs all get home in time for sunrise, as do Tommy and the two cats. Pongo and Mrs. settle into their basket and begin to hear the birds tweeting outside, signifying that everything is okay. Before Pongo falls asleep, he thinks, just in case Sirius can still hear him, "Perhaps one day, Sirius, we shall be ready to join you and accept bliss. But not yet. You see, we do have quite a lot of bliss already." Oh my god. So, what the hell was all that about? I couldn't find anything in depth about Dodie Smith's reason for writing this book, but I could find people on Reddit discussing it, which is almost as good. British fixation on nuclear war is a unique kind of crazy. Speaking as a Brit, the difference between a nuclear apocalypse here compared to places like America or Australia is that the direct effects of every blast would be totally inescapable. The island is too small for anyone to avoid fallout. You wouldn't get any of that post-apocalyptic tropes found in Mad Max or Fallout games because everyone is dead or deeply poisoned. Combine this with being relatively close to the Soviet Union and you get a unique cultural anxiety which is processed in interesting ways. You know what? If my culture would ingrain on me such a deep fear of complete annihilation, I too would rather go live among the stars with Space Dog. Hang on, hold up. Metallic plastics? Did Cruella get into goddamn latex? Question is, how did she get out of it afterwards? But really, yes, the threat of nuclear war was something that was weighing heavily on people's mind around the time when Dodie Smith would have written the book. The space race was also right around the corner, making everybody think about the concept of escaping to the stars. The ending is also heartwarming, the dogs deciding not to leave because they are happy on Earth in spite of everything. Sirius is actually a complex character. He is manipulative, and at points he comes across as unkind, but at the end of it all, he accepts their decision and realises that perhaps he didn't have a right to ask them to leave. Maybe we should all allow authors to write sequels that are completely different genres to the books that preceded them. And if they want to explore Dog Jesus, then we should let them. One of the funniest things about the Starlight Barking to me is how Disney has completely ignored its existence. Obviously, there was the original adaptation of 101 Dalmatians in 1961, and then in 1996 was the live-action adaptation, which did get a sequel. Obviously, everyone is aware of 102 Dalmatians in 2000, which is an insane movie. So, you know. And then the animated adaptation got a sequel, 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure, who knew, in 2003. And of course, we're all aware of Cruella, which is also an insane movie. It's like there's just something about the original story of 101 Dalmatians that inspires insanity in people. But none of it was inspired by the Starlight Barking. What a shame. What a shame. The 101 Dalmatians is a genuinely great book, and if you enjoyed that, then you will like the Starlight Barking, in spite of how the plot comes out of left field. It's such a short read, and every twist and turn and swoosh is ultimately delightful. If you enjoyed listening to me summarise an insane book, a few months ago I did it again, albeit with a completely different vibe and, genre, so you can check that out here. If you liked watching me talk about ill-advised animals, a few years ago I talked about the mess of the 2019 Cats film, and I'm still really proud of that video, so you can watch that one too. If you like Minecraft and happen to click on this completely unrelated video, I'm currently doing a nostalgic survival series. I truly have something for everyone. But if you're interested in none of that and you just enjoyed this video, I want to thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye. It's just stupid. It's just so stupid.